So we are 27 right now. I believe we can start. So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We will be having Paz. I remember Paz when I was studying in Ironhead. She was my jury for my final project. So for me, it's a pleasure to have her today. And yeah, I'm pretty sure she will introduce herself better than me. So Paz, the stage is all yours.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you everybody for coming, and thank you all women for having me. I do believe in giving back to the community. I think it's so important, especially in how technology is changing so rapidly, and like the formal education is really not catching up. So we had to do an effort to, you know, tell everybody how they can join us in the technology side, and that is not that scary, and we can all do it. And the path is painful, but it's totally worth it. So we're gonna give a talk around those terms. I'm gonna start presenting. Let me see. Tab.
Remember that if you have questions, you can write it in the chat and then I will read it. And the last 15 minutes, Paz is going to do a Q&A.
Okay, I'm just trying to put the presenter mode. Give me a second here. Okay, got it. Check this tab instead. Okay, so you guys should be able to see the presentation. Can you see the presentation without my notes?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, awesome. And it's
now
full.
You can see it. I don't know.
You cannot?
No.
Oh, okay.
Just stop sharing.
Okay. Let me see, present now. Tab. There you go. Present this one, share this tab instead. So now it should be okay?
Yeah.
I'm presenting to everybody? Okay. And I'm in this other one. I see what happened. Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna be having, it's kind of like a special talk today. It's about, you know, how we change careers and how sometimes it's a little bit painful to do so. It's meant to be for people that are switching or people that are just curious to see what we do on this technology side of life. I'm focused in architecture, but that's my personal path. And at the beginning of the talk, I'm gonna be talking about myself, which is a little bit weird, but I think it's good to have an example of something, or somebody that was you, basically, like 7, 8 years ago. And I was able to make a pretty successful career out of it. And hopefully that will inspire you guys to, you know, kind of push the boundaries and like change. This is the agenda for today. We are going to have 15 minutes to talk about how painful it is to change paths and talk about myself. Then we're going to have a little overview of the tech industry. I know that when we say technology, a lot of people don't really understand what it is. They get a little confused. They feel it's this thing that is done in a basement and you have to be a mega coder and have a background in computer science. And that's not the case. I mean, that's the case for some of the roles, but most of the people that do this tech industry is people like you and me that have very different backgrounds and come from any kind of industry. We have 15 minutes to talk about UX design. It's not meant to be a class in UX, but yes, like a little taste, so you have a sense of what I do on a daily basis and some kind of the deliverables and tools that I use. And I have a sense of the framework that we are utilizing on a daily basis. And at the end, hopefully we'll have 10, 15 minutes for questions. You know, over the years, a lot of people have reached out to me asking me about advice, and I know every situation is different. Some people have kids, some people are not willing to move, and so people have higher education, so people don't. So I want to have a chance. If you have a specific question, you can put it in the chat, and then by the end, hopefully we'll have 10, 15 minutes, and we can address it. This format online is pretty awesome because I'm able to join you guys now being in Barcelona, but at the same time, it's a little tricky for me I cannot see your faces basically. So we all had to like be a little bit flexible and figure out how to ask those questions and how to have a personal connection while I'm just talking to a camera basically. We're gonna start. Changing paths is painful. There's no other way to put it. How many of you are thinking of changing careers? I cannot see hands. Okay, I hear some hands going on. Okay, that's good. I'm pretty sure you feel lost. You don't know what's gonna happen. There's no guarantees. You feel extremely vulnerable. And I just want to tell you, like, that happened to me too. You're not alone. That's called basically being a human. And we're an army. We're a lot of people that are like doing these things. It's not like previous generation where you study one thing and you can do that forever. Our generation has to focus in being flexible and being resilient and being able to keep always learning, because the things that we're gonna do 20 years from now are things that are not even invented right now. So the mindset is like always be investing in yourself and don't be too afraid of change. Like the decision that we made as teenagers don't have to define your life. If you want to, that's awesome. But if you want to change what you decide when you were 16, that's okay too. For me, when I was 16, I decided that I want to be an architect. I was very good at math and physics, and I always liked design, and I love art. So, when you're a good student back in the 90s, you thought, oh, architecture is a fantastic career. And it is. It's wonderful, but it's also very painful, and you work a lot, and the opportunities are not there as they used to be. So at some point, I had to decide if I wanted that lifestyle for myself. I had a fantastic job. I was working in New York City, building public schools. I had a good salary. I had good coworkers. I had a lot of responsibility, and I really liked it. But I was working almost every weekend. My boss was 43 and was basically crying every other day because she couldn't be with her daughters. My other boss that was 65 was working every weekend. And I just didn't see myself not having a better work-life balance. I mean, you can do that when you're young, but like I didn't want to see myself like that on my 50s or my 60s. And unfortunately, the deeper you are in a different country, the harder it is to move back to Europe. And I just didn't see a clear path midway. And it was extremely difficult because, it was tough to find such a good job. So kind of like losing everything and going to unknown was something that I really struggled with. But at some point, I decided to do it. And, the rest is history. This is a little bit of my timeline. This is me. I think I was 25 there, and I was like, 15 pounds lighter than now. And I want to talk about my path because it's the one that is more personal to me and the one that I know the best. But yours is going to be different. You might be married now. You might have kids or not. You might have come from, like movies or like I have a friend that used to be a bartender. There's so many backgrounds where you can go into technology. So please take my journey with a grain of salt, and we can talk about how can you adapt yours. When I finished architectural school, I got a job in Barcelona, and I was an architect building health clinics and schools there for a couple of years. I used to do that day, and then during the night and in the weekends, I created a startup. It was completely random. I knew nothing about technology, but I had a partner that was American, and we saw around 2005 to 2006 that there was a boom in the US regarding e-commerce. So we kind of like roll our sleeves and we decided to like learn. He learned how to code and I learned how to do UX and marketing and, any kind of like graphic, anything that was needed, inventory, anything without any kind of background or knowledge about like business or even technology. And I think that's one of the blessings of not knowing anything and being young. We didn't see the risk and we jumped in. So we were shipping ceramic from Spain to the south of the US, to the north of Florida, actually. And we were selling things online. And back in the day, they didn't even refer us, nobody was calling us a startup because there was no such a term in Spain. They were calling us an innovative business, which now you don't hear that term. And that's another funny thing about the industry, like the terms are always switching and the roles are always switching. So we did that, and around 2008, 2009, the business was not doing great. That was the beginning of the crisis, or the crisis of the 2010, 2008. So we moved to Jacksonville, Florida, hoping to really push the business and salvage anything we can do. And I had to face a very tough decision because I was happy in Barcelona, but I can see the crisis coming to Spain a few years ago. And I thought the business had a chance. So we moved to Florida, and sure enough, a couple of months later, the dollar really crashed against the euro, and we were like basically losing money. There was no way we can recover. Like we just like lost the business. So I put it here because I want everybody to know, like, I felt like a failure. It was really difficult for me after like leaving a job, leaving your friends behind and your family. You go to a different country and your business fail and you don't have a backup. And there's a crisis in that country too. There's no jobs around. It's a very dark place. And for many years, I didn't put on my resume that I actually had a startup. I thought there was something to be ashamed of because it didn't succeed. So at that point, the only thing in my mind that I could do was to move to New York City and find a job. So I went to any architectural office that I can find online with my resume and my portfolio, and I knock in every door. I send every job offer, and I was really lucky that even in a crisis, I was able to find a really good job within a couple of months. So I was able to breathe again, and I put behind my years doing the startup. Like that never happened. And as I was saying before, after a few years of working as an architect, I just didn't see like a long-term plan. I didn't see my life in my 50s and my 60s doing that kind of lifestyle. So like anybody that is human, I had a breakdown. I was stuck. I was around 32. What can I do? I have invested so much in architecture. It was so painful. But I knew I had to leave architecture behind. I knew that profession, as much as I loved it, it was not going to give me my lifestyle that I wanted. It was not going to give me the freedom that I needed. So I knew I was going to go into technology. I didn't know what I was going to do. And I went back to school, like you guys are thinking of doing. Going back to school in your early 30s, it wasn't that bad, but it was definitely a humbling experience. Most of my peers were like 23, 24. I didn't know where to start. So I actually joined NYU, the School of Professional Studies, and I started studying digital marketing. I thought, okay, they have a big Latin market in the US. Maybe I can do marketing for like Latin startups. Why not? With no background in marketing, no background in any kind of writing or anything. But I'm like, I'm a hard worker, I can do this. And I was extremely lucky because my first class in NYU was digital strategy. And there was this lady that came, and she was kind of the leading person to change Steel Lauder into like a bigger e-commerce platform. So she was talking about UX, and she was talking about the UX approach and all these things that were very familiar to me from architecture. she was talking about like research and design and how you test things and talking about concepts that were very, very familiar. So that day I decided, okay, I don't want to do digital marketing anymore, even if I have paid all this money. I will finish these classes, but I will go into UX. And at the end of the day, I joined a bootcamp, and bootcamp might not be the format for you. Maybe it will be. There's many ways to enter into UX design, from master's degree. There's courses online. There's bootcamps. You can do it yourself. There's many things, and it kind of depends on your personality, your background, the city, what you're intending to do in the future. For me, bootcamp really worked really great. But at the end of the day, what I truly learned was lessons about like failure, about resilience, and about it's okay to take chances. And honestly, these life lessons that I learned like a few years back have really paid back, because this year I moved to San Francisco in February, and I was, the timing wasn't right. And after 2 weeks of being in San Francisco, the pandemic broke, the lockdown broke, just when I was starting to send resumes out. And the tech industry was in panic, like the whole world, and it was extremely difficult to find jobs. But I knew that if I was resilient and I was constant and I just keep my head above water, I will find something. And sure enough, like a couple of months later, Autodesk called me, and now I'm very happy working for Autodesk in San Francisco. Since I switched to UX, I have worked for these 4 companies. I have lived in New York, I live in Barcelona, I have lived in Badajoz, and I have lived in San Francisco. I also took a leap year to travel the world because that was a long time dream and I wanted to do that. So last year, I actually spent my year, 2019, I basically didn't work. And I was traveling. I was fortunate enough that, the tech industry is so flexible and there's so many opportunities that it gives you that freedom. It's tough and there are compromises. I don't want to say that everything is like, perfect, but it gives you a freedom that is very difficult to find in other industries. My first job was at BBDO. And I would say the first job is the toughest to find, just because you don't have a portfolio. You have the classes, but you haven't proved that you are good enough to be hired. So I found this job through networking, through a friend of a friend. But also, it came when I was ready. I was already working for General Assembly as a teacher assistant. I was also working with certain startups, like kind of donating my time in exchange for experience. So there's always a way to find the first job. But it is tough. The first one, the break-in, is not that easy. Like hopefully, the boot camps and the schools, they have like these internships programs. I know All Women has a really good one that helps you like that connects you with companies, kind of finding a match. So there are ways, but the first one is the one. Once that you have that one, the next one is so much easier. Surex is a Canadian company that allowed me to work from anywhere. It was a breeze. And then finding the one in Autodesk, even through a pandemic, it wasn't that bad. So it just gets easier and easier. And now it's kind of your time. Like you had to decide if you want to do this or not. There's no halfways. I know times are not the best. I know things are uncertain. It's a lot of work. So you have to like be focused and think that it's going to be a little bit painful, especially at the beginning, but it will get better. The way I kind of saw my life was in a 5-year plan. I knew the first year was going to suck. By the second year was going to be a little bit better. And the 5th year, I was going to be okay. And that honestly happened within a year. So my plan was actually, it kind of happened right away. I was also in New York, which is a very dynamic market. If you are looking to work in Barcelona or like other regions of Spain, or you're thinking of maybe France, or even like other European countries, unless you're truly in London or Amsterdam, things are a little bit slow. So you can find many opportunities, but it's not going to be as fast as the US. But in 5 years, you can't really learn anything. Like maybe not being a doctor, but like anything else that you put your mind into, You can be a programmer, you can be a data analyst, anything you want to do within 5 years, you're going to be in a good position. I want to give you an overview of what the tech industry is. The tech industry at the end of the day is like any other industry. We have some tech companies, which are Google and Facebook, Amazon, that are businesses that are focused on building software. Then we have consulting, which are things like Everest or Accenture. There's many of them. And these are just firms that are kind of like help businesses become more digital. And then there's agencies. This can be ad agency, marketing agencies, technology agencies, and they cannot go by project. So if somebody's looking to build an app, for when I work at BBDO, it's like an ad agency. We will work for, M&M. So we work for like Lowe's, like different like American brands, and they wanted to do this digital campaign. So we were helping doing that. I would say for me, the most interesting one is a tech company that does software, but I know a lot of people working in consultancy and a lot of people working in agencies too that are very happy. So it's going to be a little bit about who you are and what's the kind of like environment you want to work on. This is like, everything with a grain of salt. I have classified kind of like tech companies, the kind of company that does software. Again, you can split this company in many different ways, and I'm sure I'm missing big chunks of it. But if I had to classify in 3 ways, it would be the companies that are doing just software, the companies that have software and kind of like a physical component that is not only a software that they can sell, and companies that are like more like a classical business, but they have such a big tech department that they have become tech companies too. So in the 100% software, we have things like social media, like Facebook is a free software, but they're selling you. If you're not paying, you're the product, that's for sure. So Facebook is selling your data. That's their business model. We have a streaming, like free, like a Netflix or like Spotify. And usually streaming, they usually have a freemium model, meaning you have free with ads or like to a limited amount of content, and then the rest you have to pay for it. And then we have SaaS. SaaS means service, software as a service. And those are things like Photoshop or AutoCAD or many like Google products. So what we sell basically is a software that you use for your work or for whatever you need. Is there any questions so far? Okay, I feel like a crazy lady talking to my computer without seeing any faces, but hopefully everybody is still there. Companies that need some kind of like physical component. So that will be companies like Amazon. Amazon, yes, they do a lot of software, like a lot of their business is software, but they also need logistics, fulfillment center. They're actually selling goods. So it's something, they need this like physical world to coexist. Micromobility, like bikes, scooters, taxis, like Cabify, all those need people and taxis and like cars and like things for that to work. Delivery, I put Just Eat. There's so many delivery companies nowadays, and they need the bags, they need containers, they need scooters, they need people. There is a big physical component. And then the last one is the IoT, the Internet of Things. So, it will be objects that have sensors that are collecting data, like the Fitbit that you use, the Apple Watch that has your pulses, and, like the lights. And there's so many things right now that are collecting the data that we had to distill and learn from it. And then this, a tech, like classical with a tech department, I would say this is very popular in Spain, just because Spain's a little bit behind into technical things. So there's big companies like banks and retailers that are actually becoming so digital that are becoming a software company. Banks which are on the fintech space, like financial tech, like El Santander. Santander has like a huge division, and like BBVA too, like it's like huge. They're trying to compete with like all the little startups that are like taking a big part of the pie. Retail, Sarah, yes, Sarah has a lot of stores everywhere. However, the online commerce that they have is becoming bigger and bigger, and they have a huge, huge community, and they have a lot of employees looking into the e-commerce space. And then publications, the publications were forced to become more digital a few years ago, and you have newspapers, you have people doing ebooks. There's a little bit of everything there. Departments. I want to talk here like it's just a company at the end of the day. So a software company, any of these companies that I just mentioned, at the end of the day, it's just a company. So they have sales, they have marketing, they have HR, they have all these departments that you can find in any classical company that you're thinking about. So you can always be in one of those departments if you really don't want to be building the software. But I want to focus on the people that are actually building the software. So who makes a product? We have developers, we have designers and researchers, and that will be me. We have project and product managers. We have data analysts. There's many more figures, but again, I'm trying to like keep it streamlined and focus. So the developer focuses on the how we're gonna build this, what's the language we're gonna use, how things are gonna be related to themselves, how are we gonna write this code. The designers and the researchers were focusing more on the what and why. Especially the researchers, they're focusing mostly on the why. Why are we doing this? If we're building, Google Maps, like why are we building a map? Oh, people want to go to point B to point Z. Why are we doing that? The more you ask why, you really get the intent of why people are doing something, and you can design for it. And then you specify, why are we doing? What are we doing? We are doing a map, and we are showing these steps, and we are showing these milestones, and we're giving people all that they need so they can go from one point to another. But the what has to follow the why. The why is truly the root. And that's what we always say in UX. I always ask for the why, because you will be a better designer, basically. Then we have project and product managers, and these people they're part of shaping the product. So they have a say on what we're doing. I mean, of course, everything, all the figures here with the product based on the stakeholders. There's business people saying what they need, and then we look at the user and we see the market, and within all of that decide what's gonna be the product. The product manager is a lot focused on the when too. So there's a roadmap, there's a timeline, and we have to deliver this part by this date, and then we are gonna do this other part, and then we're gonna do this third part that has to do something with that. So they're the ones kind of splitting things, and they do that talking to the developers and the designers, and with all the people together, we put like this roadmap, and then we do that, and we basically follow through, hopefully. The data analyst, this is kind of like a newer figure. So at the beginning of my career, and again, it hasn't been that long, it's been like 8 years, the data analyst used to be only the Google Analytics guy. And it used to be a person that will look at the Google Analytics and will tell you how many people are clicking in places. Because we have more and more data, and the data is becoming such an important factor in deciding when are we doing things and why and where we should focus. The data analyst has become a huge figure. And I would say from all those 4 people that you had in front of you, the data analyst is the one that is growing the most. We have an incredible amount of data in our world, and now 5G is coming. So we're going to have even more data in the years to come. And if you can manage that data, that's a huge key to understand what's going on. And that's going to help developers and designers, and of course, product managers to decide. So that's something to look into too. Developers. Okay, again, this is an oversimplification. So with a grain of salt, we had front end, we had back end, and we had QA. So front end is more focused on what you see. It can be a web or a Google app or Google Apple app, iOS app, and it's based on more into the things that you're actually touching with your fingers or your clicks. But the backend is more focused on the architecture and the database. It's more like the structure that is allowing the front end to live. So the front end is the thing that you see, you touch something, and that goes and gets registered into a database. And that whole process has to be set up by a backender. The QA is a quality assistant assurance, and it tests for quality. So it cannot test to make sure that everything that we're designing and what the engineers are doing is working correctly, and it looks for edge cases. Like what happens when you submit a form 20 times? What happens when you have a super long name that doesn't, is that breaking the form that you're submitting? They're looking for all those weird things. So the QA is something that you really, really want to have in your team too, because it's going to allow the user to have a better experience with things that are not breaking down. Designers and researchers. So that will be me and my friends. So I have put also the backgrounds of the people that usually come into these categories. These categories can be a little more granular too, and we have different names, and the names are always changing, and I have different titles in different companies. But usually the UX researchers, they are talking to the users, to the people. They're doing some, like any kind of tool. They're shadowing people, they're doing diary studies, they're doing anything that really gives it the insight about what's going on. So these people are master in understanding humans. So their background tend to be, and please understand you can come from any background, but they tend to be from sociology or psychology because they just have a better understanding of how to phrase questions, and they have a better understanding of the cues of what people are saying. Then we have UX UI designers, and this is a huge category that is ever changing. You have product designers that maybe touch a little bit into the final design, but they're even touching research, and they're touching, UX design. They do a little more transversal. And I used to be a product designer for my former company. You have interaction designer, you have UX developers, which tend to code. You have UX writers, and those are not designing per se. Those are actually writing the copy, but also testing with users and understanding what you have to say and where. The background for UX designers, product designers, all the above is very, very different. I have seen it's mostly people from graphic design, yes, because it's easier the transition, and especially in places like Spain where the industry is not very mature and people they don't truly understand that much what we do as UX designers. They tend to hire people that have a strong background in design, in graphic design. So you can find a lot of graphic designers, but then you find a lot of industrial designers, ergonomic designers, a lot of architects. We go into UX design too. It's just anybody that has an understanding of how humans think and can distill that into design will kind of be in this category. And then you have visual designers, and these are mostly graphic designers, motion designers, but you can come from any background if you're willing to learn. There's definitely enough room for visual design. And the visual designer can be split into they have sometimes just like emoji designer, like you can get very specific, illustrators, like digital illustrators too. So it kind of depends on where you're coming from. UX design. So we are gonna talk now that we have a sense of who is doing what and the different players in the tech community. Again, with a grain of salt, there's more roles, but I would say these are the main ones to give you an overview. We're gonna go into UX design. It's gonna have some water. So UX design is a little tricky to define. So I have this quote from Don Norman. Don Norman basically is the inventor of the user experience word. And Don Norman is the person that shaped Apple, which is a very known company of products that we use every day. And they were like the first one doing these kind of digital products that were so human-centered. So that's the root of, like, the background that we all have as a UX designers. We're all coming from the Don Norman school. And he says, a product is not an island. A product is more than a product. It's a cohesive, integrated set of experiences. Think through all the stages of a product or service, from initial intention through final reflections, from the first usage to help, service, and maintenance. Make them all work together seamlessly. So I think that's the most important thing to remember. Like, these are a set of experiences, and you can have user experience in any kind of design discipline. So for me as an architect, I was doing UX design because I was thinking of how people were going to use the building, how they were going to enter in a hall, how they were going to go into the classes, where the light was going to come from, how the sound was going to bound. I was thinking of the whole experience, and I was designing for that. But usually we say user experience for digital products. So it's bringing all those thoughts about what a user need, what a person, a human that is interacting with a product is feeling and is needing and is wanted, and designing for all those things. UX, the umbrella of UX is very wide. So we're taking things from this discipline for industrial design, from architecture, interaction design, human-computer interaction, a lot of visual design, information architecture. There's a lot of things that come in play. There's a lot of usability to interface design, content strategy. There's many things that come into place. Design thinking is the framework that we use. So as designers in this digital world, we use a framework called design thinking. It's truly something that any designer is doing, but we have kind of distilled the different steps. So it's a little bit easier for us to decide which phase we're doing at the time, and it's a little bit easier to focus. There's definitely different ways of doing this design thinking. The one that you have in front of you is the one from the Stanford Design School, which is one of the most popular. Some people split this process in 3, some people split this process in 5. But at the end of the day, it's just like finding something that you empathize. You look at the world to ask a question. Why is this happening? Why this clock needs light when it's in my table? Why do I need this a spoon that has this curve? Once that you have this emphasis and you are understanding the problem really, you start defining what's going on. Then you start going to ideation. Oh, we can solve it like this. What about if we do this other thing? What about if this person is helping us to build this crazy app that does this really weird thing. Once that we had the idea, we prototype. We tend to prototype with paper or just a little digital product that is basically almost like PDFs that you paste together, and we put that in front of people and test that. Test is kind of the last step, but this is always circular. Once that you test, you kind of see what's working on and what not, and then you kind of go through the whole process. I'm putting some deliverables that we have in UX. There's many things that we do. We don't do all of these things for every company or for every project, only whatever is necessary. There are more things that we do. There's different tools that we use to provide these deliverables. But in a nutshell, one classical one is a sitemap. So when you're doing a website or a map or an app, you want to know where things are going to be clustered. So below this branch, this is where things are going to go. So usually we have a sitemap to help engineers, content, and to help the user navigate the site. We have a user flow, which is usually the squares with the arrows, and it's tend to convey to the engineer that is building whatever product you are building with, is tend to tell them when the user clicks here, then it goes there, then it has these two possibilities, and then you can give them this possibility, or you can give them this other one. So it's mimicking the flow of a user. And these are all tools to communicate with the developers and with the visual designer in case you have a visual designer. We're going to wireframes too. So wireframes are almost like blueprints. It's almost like a blueprint for a building. So you don't focus that much into the colors or the font or the images. You're focused more into where the things are going to be, the transitions that we're going to have from this screen. You're going to go to this other screen, and we're going to show this type of information. So it's more about the concept and the intent than the actual form of it. That will be the mock-up. And the mock-up is almost like the final product from a design point of view, which is the screens with the color, the font, the spacing, everything just perfect. So an engineer can come and build the whole thing. So that's kind of the end of the overview. Like that's the end of the presentation. I think I'm just right on time to give you some minutes for questions. I want to have a final thought about diversity and inclusion. Technology is truly the industrial revolution of our time. There's no question about it. Our world is truly changing. Technology is changing how we behave, and it's changing how we think. It's a tool that we have shaped, and it's shaping us. And it's incredibly important that like we all take part in shaping that tool that is affecting our lives so much. It's very powerful, and it cannot be only built by white men. Not that there's anything wrong with them, but it has to be like an array of people. So we need to have more women into technology. We need to have more minorities. We had to have all kind of socioeconomic background. This thing that only rich people can do, I'm really tired of that. Like we had to tackle real problems for people that come from any kind of point of life. I do believe that our future is in the line, especially now that artificial intelligence is coming, and there's going to be a revolution in things that are classical industry for our country. So I really hope that this is like call to action, and you feel like you can join us on the tech side, and you are going to tell other people that come from different and any kind of like shape and form, and tell them about, you know, we can do this and we should do this together. So that's it. Thank you so much. I have some time. I do have a few minutes for Q&A, which is pretty fantastic. I'm going to stop sharing. So now I'm here. Hopefully you guys are still here. Okay, people are still here. It's such a weird thing. I'm talking to myself. There's like nobody. That's awesome. Okay.
I don't know. I can't see any faces there. I don't know if my internet or my connection.
I can see some smiley faces. That gives me hope. Thank you. I see Amparo. Thank you. I see some of my students. Oh, Claudine. Oh my God. Hi, Claudine. That's so cute. That's my French roommate from many years ago.
Oh, wow.
That's awesome. Okay. I'm thinking you might have some question about how to change, how you want to do it in particular. So like, if you want to ask anything, please let me know.
There is a question in the chat.
Oh, in the chat? Okay. Hello from Texas. Okay. Thank you, talk. How important do you think is to understand psychology or sociology as a science, as opposed just to understanding people from empathy? You know, that's a good question. I don't know if I'm the person to answer that, because I've never done those studies. You know, I never really did deep into psychology or sociology. I was actually thinking, I'm not at that point in my life, but I was thinking a few years maybe doing some kind of like distant learning for psychology, because I do believe it's so important. I think like being empathetic is great, and it's an action. It's something you can be doing every day and improving. We do have some tools that we use so we can be a little more effective. But there's no doubt in my mind that if you have a formal education, you have more tools in your toolbox than somebody like me that is just trying their best to approach people. saying that a lot of tech companies, I mean, not the big ones, not the Googles and the Apples, and like, I mean, I work for Autodesk, we have amazing researchers. But when you go to the startup level or a small company, they don't have many researchers at all. So for a designer to be able to push themselves and really go and talk to people, it's extremely important, because like any feedback that you can have as soon as possible is going to change the product for the better. So don't shy away, but yes, there's definitely a benefit in actually having a formal education. Oh, Barca, oh my God, there's people from everywhere. Thank you, guys. Okay, any other question? Shy bunch?
Yes, you have.
Hi, hi, Anastasia. Oh, so good to see you guys.
You have a new question on the chat. Paz.
Oh, okay. Based on your experience, do you believe companies are just willing to hire people only with good kind of education? So yes and no. First, what's the market we're talking about? I think that's extremely important. Where are you located? Second, like really big companies, and I know like things like Everest or Mango in Barcelona, they tend to hire people that are not coming from bootcamps, that are coming from, I would say, a more formal education, like a master's degree, just because they have internship programs. So they're like, they have some kind of like government aid. So it's cheaper for them to do so. I think it really depends on your background. So if you have no idea about design, and you maybe don't have that much like work experience, a master is a bit easier. So because they have the internship program, so it's easier that they hire you for nothing and give you the chance. For me, that I was an architect for years, a bootcamp was better because it does give you a better understanding. Like I see the programs for the master's degree all the time. My brother did a master's degree to change into UX. The portfolio wasn't as good. The knowledge wasn't as deep. The teachers were kind of disengaged. They didn't build the community around it. That can be very important. So I don't want to addition them. I think they have a place. I think they're important. But I think boot camps are kind of like, there's an empty space there. There's an empty space of like really intense education where it kind of opens many doors. Then it's up to you to really learn and like work hard. But it depends on who you are or the market. I would say that's how you have to make your decision. But I mean, do I know? Like for sure, like most of my friends, I did a bootcamp. Most of my friends are at Facebook, Google, Amazon. We're all at top tier companies. So I know for a fact that they do hire you. How easy was for you to incorporate your former experience as an architect into your current career? Or could you see that experience and knowledge at all? 100%. I was never a junior. So they hired me as a UX designer. And the first day at the job, they told me, you had to build a CMS for the company, for BBDO. So the website for BBDO and the website for any BBDO company around the world have a CMS, which is a custom management system. So you can write the content that it has been built by me. And they told me that the first day, and I say, of course, no problem. And I went to my desk and I Googled, what's a CMS? Because I didn't know. So I did that. I put like, nights and nights into like really understanding the different types, and I just did it. So, that's thanks to architecture. Without that, I couldn't have done it. Like it gave me a vision of how people are moving in the space, and this is just a digital space. The design process is exactly the same as architecture. Sometimes I'm struggling at something. I can be discouraging and question if I am in the right path. That happened to me too. What type of approaches do you recommend to take on your time to help us identify strength, weakness, or interest in UX tech roles? Oh my God, whew, that's a very tough question. It's just such a personal question, For me, like I was always very happy in my different jobs. The reason why I have been switching so much was because I got pregnant and I wanted to go back to Spain. So I wanted something remote. And then I want to kind of personal reasons. However, I kind of felt a little bit like you were saying, like at some point, the projects weren't fulfilling me 100%. And when that happens, for me, and that's very personal, I love reaching out to the community. So I will give workshops and I will reach out and I will teach. So I have taught at Iron Hack, but I also have given talks to Latinas in like San Francisco. It's like anything you can do. This right now is something I do for free, and it gives me so much joy because it's kind of connecting to you guys and it's helping me develop my skills. But also, I know like hopefully one of you are gonna switch into technology, and that's gonna be awesome because we need you. So this fulfills me a lot. For you, maybe it's reaching out to a startup that has the mission of something that you like, and maybe on the side working almost for free until you can make a career out of that, or just give back because you want to. Oh my God. Thank you. Thank you. You said the first job was the hardest. Having zero network in the sector, what would be your recommendation to look for a job in terms of network in Barcelona? Thank you for saying the market. Have I missed one, or? I think that's the next one, no? From Chloe?
Yeah.
Okay, so for Barcelona, I think that maybe is one that I can put on one of my students to answer from Barcelona. What I always say is like, if you don't have a lot of experience, network. So go to events, offer your services to a startup. You can go to different co-workings, like MOB, the one where All Women's is located, is a good one in Barcelona. But there's like a startup weeks. There's like different interests. Go there and kind of like offer for free your services. Most of the startups are done by a business person and a developer. It's very rare that they have a designer on place. And if they do, it's usually like a visual designer that just like is hired by the hour. So if you go as a researcher, UX designer, that is just gonna have them talk to the user and put the prototype in front of people to learn, most likely they're gonna, I wouldn't say hire you, but they're gonna let you do it. And now you're building your portfolio. And now you can go to an interview and say, you know, I have done this for these startups. And if you're lucky enough that that startup is going well, most likely they will hire you. So that will, if you have zero experience, I would say network and offer your service to startups is the best bet. I'm an architect thinking about moving to the US from Spain, but have found myself interested in UX and data science. Oh, David, I would say I've been an architect in the US for years. It's better than Spain. It's better pay, and you have more things there. However, the hours are still criminal, and there's not that many opportunities. UX is a perfect background for architects. I know there's many of us in UX. And data science is also interesting too. And if you want to be, if you don't want to be unemployed, if you want to have a job for sure, I will go into data science. Data science has an insane demand right now in the US. UX is closer to architecture, so it's going to be easier for you to transition. It's going to be more like a common language, but you know, it's not as popular as data science in terms of hiring right now. Saying that, there's plenty of jobs. Architecture is awesome, but unfortunately, it's not that great anywhere in the world for what I am. Maybe China is doing great. But I mean, if you want to be an architect, that's great too. Like, I love architects. Still, many of my friends are. It's a fantastic profession. Just the market is not there, unfortunately. What do you advise the showcase for UX skills when applying for your first position? A website or a PDF portfolio? What do you mainly present? Well, that's tricky too. Like, so here's the thing. My first job was many years ago. So there were some websites, some portfolio website, but it wasn't as popular. So I got away with PDFs. But I believe right now you have to have some kind of website. And there's so many places where you can do a template almost for free, if not for free, that just put some case studies together and, you know, try that. Do you need UX UI? I would say yes. Like, push yourself to like know a little bit about graphic design, at least a little bit about graphic design. There's many things that you can borrow from the internet that is going to make your portfolio to look better, but it's just easy to understand, especially if you never worked with a visual designer. And you can say that's not your main focus and that's not where you want to be, meaning doing the visual part. But like having some kind of visual aid is going to help you. It's going to make your portfolio better. So I will recommend you like putting the time in learning a little bit. Yeah. How do you recommend building a strong UX portfolio in terms of content and way of representing that? You know, it really depends on the position you're going to. Like if you're doing research, it's not that important. Like content is very important, but like the visual representation is not that much. If you want to be a UX designer, you want to focus more on having a case study. So understanding the goals and why you took some decisions. So it's almost like a story of where you were at the beginning of the project and your process and then the end. And if you want to go into more visual position, I will go right away with a prototype or mockups and just talk about the process just a little bit. So it kind of depends where you want to go. Okay, I think that's it. Thanks, I can relate. Oh, no, one more. Okay, if you have time. Yes, I have time. By the way, I'm working, but my company is really, really nice. I really like Autodesk. I'm working in San Francisco hours. So I'm working until midnight for you guys.
Wow.
One of the things for Autodesk is like they're really into community. So I told my boss I was gonna do this for women in Barcelona, and he said, absolutely yes. What do you need? Block anytime. He put it in the company like Slack, so they're so supportive, and that's something that I'm very proud of. So Autodesk, 2 thumbs up. You mentioned a lot of fields in UX in your presentation. When you are at the stage of thinking about going to UX, any tips to deep dive on what it could be the best option for you? Unfortunately, like, no, you have to like have a little taste of everything. So you have to go with your interest and your gut, but you're not gonna know right away. I mean, as I said, I knew I was gonna be in tech and I went for digital marketing and I learned about SEO and like Google Analytics and things that right now they're not one-on-one applicable on my daily job. But I'm actually happy that I know about it. So when people are talking about it, at least I have a sense. It's not a black box that is like, oh, I don't know what analytics is. I can actually go and look at the analytics and have like a basic understanding. So you're gonna have to go to like some kind of class and I start testing and I start pursuing the things that you like the most or the things that you see a better future for yourself. It's a very personal thing, but I cannot tell you this like this A, B, and C where you can see your perfect match. On top of that, the industry is changing so much. Again, data analyst, that was not a position 7 years ago. I mean, it wasn't there. So keep learning and keep being open. I'm a UX designer today, but I don't know what I'm gonna be in 10 years. I truly don't. The only thing that I know is to be resilient, to work hard, and keep learning. And I know I'm always gonna be employed if I do that, and I'm gonna be happy. But I mean, the future, who knows? We're gonna see together, you know? AI is coming, 5G is coming. We're all gonna be robots by the end of this. What can we expect for income, work pursuing career in the US or London or Barcelona? Oh, that's an impossible question. Like I know Barcelona is quite low for tech standards, but it also depends on the place. So I think for Barcelona, I'm gonna let Daniela answer. For London, I would say it's 20% less than the US. So what I have seen, the biggest salaries are in the San Francisco area. So like a junior UX will be around 70,000 US dollars to like maybe 80 or maybe 60 to 80. For my tier, which is like 6 or 7 years, it's like around 100 to like 150, and then it's like 150 plus. New York, I will say, is like 20% less. UK is 40% less. So we're talking about like 50,000 pounds to 70,000 pounds. And again, it depends on the experience. But I know that Barcelona is something around like, I don't know, 30 to like 50.
Yeah.
What are you saying? Yeah.
I would say that for a junior position, it's around 24, 26,000.
Yeah, you see Barcelona, it's like, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I know. Spain doesn't pay really well. But I mean, you can go up fairly quick in technology just because people, like being a senior architect, it takes like 8 years. Being a senior UX takes a couple of years or like 3 years. It really doesn't take that long. I mean, it depends on the company. For Google, they're going to ask you more. But for like a regular company in Barcelona, like 3 years, you're going to be a senior. So I wouldn't be super worried about the money. You can always work remote, especially if your English is good. You can always work for the UK, which pays better. And you can always try to work for the US, which definitely pays better. So that will be my advice.
Absolutely right. Well, there is no more question, Paz. It's always just people is thank you for this presentation. And I want to thank you so much for joining us today and talk about your experience, all the UX file, and giving some tips to our attendees. I will leave our website in the chat, and if you have any question, please do not hesitate to contact me. I will leave my email as well, and this session is recorded, so we are going to share it for you in our communication channels.
Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining. Like, it's been such a fun experience, and hopefully it will be helpful for you guys. And I'm really hoping we can work together in the future. I might not seen all your faces, but you let me know if we do. And, have a wonderful holiday time.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.